desert sun blazed over the rugged terrain of old Tucson, Arizona, in the summer of 1958. Dust devils danced across the makeshift western town where one of Hollywood's most ambitious productions was unfolding. Director Howard Hawks had assembled a dream cast for Rio Bravo: John Wayne, Dean Martin, and the legendary Walter Brennan. But nobody could have predicted that on one scorching afternoon, the smooth-talking crooner would reveal a side of himself that would forever change how his colleagues saw him. Before we dive into this incredible true story, if you enjoy behind-the-scenes Hollywood tales that reveal the real character of our favorite stars, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. These stories deserve to be remembered, and your support helps keep Golden Age Hollywood history alive. The production of Rio Bravo had been grueling from the start. Hawks was a perfectionist, demanding take after take under the unforgiving Arizona sun. Dean Martin, known to the world as the carefree half of Martin and Lewis, had recently gone solo and was determined to prove himself as a serious actor. He'd been cast as Dude, an alcoholic deputy seeking redemption, a role that required genuine dramatic depth, not just his trademark charm and vocal prowess. Walter Brennan, already a 3-time Academy Award winner at 64 years old, watched Dean carefully during the first weeks of shooting. The veteran actor had seen countless performers come and go through Hollywood's revolving door of fame. He'd worked with everyone from Gary Cooper to Humphrey Bogart, and he prided himself on his ability to read people. Dean Martin, he initially thought, was just another pretty face from the nightclub circuit. Talented, certainly, but probably lacking the substance that separated true artists from mere entertainers. The incident that would shatter Brennan's assumptions occurred on a Tuesday afternoon during the filming of a complex stunt sequence. The scene called for a dramatic confrontation outside the Bisbee Saloon, where Dude would face down 3 hired guns in a tense standoff. The stunt coordinator, a weathered veteran named Clayton Hoffmeister, had choreographed an elaborate sequence involving horses, gunfire, and a carefully timed wagon collision. Dean's stunt double, a 32-year-old rider named Marcus Donovan from Prescott, Arizona, had been rehearsing the sequence all morning. Marcus was a 3rd-generation stuntman whose grandfather had worked on silent westerns alongside Tom Mix. He had a wife, Carolyn, and 3 young children: Nathaniel, 8, Rebecca, 6, and little Thomas, just 4 years old, waiting for him back home in their modest house on Copper Creek Road. The stunt payment of $850 would cover 2 months of mortgage payments and finally allow them to fix the leaking roof before the monsoon season arrived. The sequence required Marcus to leap from a moving horse onto the wagon, roll across its bed, and tumble to the ground just as it crashed into a wooden barricade. It was dangerous, but Marcus had performed similar stunts dozens of times. What nobody had accounted for was the rotted spoke in the wagon's left rear wheel, a defect hidden beneath layers of paint applied by the art department to make the vehicle look authentically weathered. Dean Martin stood in the shade of the saloon's false front, watching the rehearsals with unusual intensity. Between takes, he'd been asking Marcus detailed questions about the stunt mechanics, the safety precautions, the backup plans. Marcus, accustomed to actors who treated stunt performers as invisible machinery, found himself charmed by Dean's genuine interest and respect. "Your kids must think you're quite the hero," Dean had said during one break, sharing a cigarette with Marcus. "What do they think their old man does for a living?" Marcus had laughed, his sun-weathered face crinkling. "They think I'm a real cowboy. Haven't had the heart to tell them I'm just pretending." "Pretending takes real courage," Dean had replied, an observation that struck Marcus as unexpectedly profound coming from a man the tabloids portrayed as Hollywood's most carefree playboy. The final rehearsal before the actual filming began at 2:15 in the afternoon. The temperature had climbed to 106 degrees. The entire crew was exhausted, eager to capture the shot and retreat to the relative coolness of the indoor sets. Hawks called for positions, the cameras rolled, and Marcus spurred his horse into motion. Everything unfolded perfectly for the first 8 seconds. Marcus made the leap from saddle to wagon with practiced grace, his body rolling exactly as choreographed. But as the wagon accelerated toward the barricade, the damaged wheel spoke snapped with a crack that echoed across the set like a gunshot. The wagon lurched violently to the left, throwing Marcus off balance. Instead of the controlled tumble that would land him clear of the impact zone, he slipped backward, his boot catching in the wagon's side rail. The wagon was now careening toward the barricade with Marcus's leg trapped, his body dragging alongside. In seconds, the crash would crush him between 1,500 pounds of wood and the solid barrier. Dean Martin moved before his conscious mind could process what was happening. He sprinted from his mark with the explosive speed of an athlete, not a 41-year-old entertainer who'd spent the previous decade in nightclubs and recording studios. The crew members froze, paralyzed by shock and the ingrained Hollywood instinct never to interfere with a shot in progress. Hawk shouted something, a warning, an order, but Dean was already committed. He reached the wagon's trajectory with impossible timing, grabbing the side rail with both hands and using his momentum to vault partially onto the moving vehicle. For a terrifying moment, it seemed he'd simply added himself to the impending disaster. But Dean's hands found Marcus's trapped boot, and with strength born of pure adrenaline, he wrenched the stuntman's leg free just as the wagon slammed into the barricade with a thunderous crash that sent splinters flying in every direction. Both men tumbled to the ground in a cloud of dust. The wagon disintegrated against the barrier, pieces of wood spinning through the air. One large section of the side rail, the very piece that had trapped Marcus, embedded itself in the barricade at exactly the height where Marcus's chest would have been. The set erupted in chaos. Crew members rushed forward. Clayton Hoffmeister reached them first, his face pale beneath his tan. Marcus lay on his back, gasping, his leg bleeding from a gash but otherwise intact. Dean sat beside him in the dirt, his costume torn, his hands scraped raw, staring at the wreckage with an expression of stunned realization. Walter Brennan pushed through the crowd, his eyes locked on Dean. The younger man looked up, and Brennan saw something he hadn't expected. Not pride or heroism, but a deep, shaken vulnerability. Dean's hands were trembling. "Is he okay?" Dean asked, his famous smooth voice cracking. "Tell me he's okay." The set medic confirmed that Marcus had escaped with minor injuries, bruises, the leg gash, potential whiplash. He'd need stitches and rest, but he'd be fine. As they loaded Marcus onto a stretcher, he grabbed Dean's wrist. "You saved my life," Marcus said simply. "Caroline and the kids, they still have their husband, their father. Because of you." Dean shook his head. "The wagon shouldn't have been unsafe. This shouldn't have happened." "But it did happen," Marcus insisted. "And you didn't think. You just acted." Hawks called for a production halt while safety crews inspected every vehicle and prop on the set. The inspection revealed 3 other wagons with similar structural weaknesses, any of which could have failed catastrophically. Dean's intervention hadn't just saved Marcus. It had exposed a systemic safety problem that could have injured or killed multiple people over the course of the production. That evening, as the desert cooled and the crew gathered for the daily rap meeting, Walter Brennan approached Dean, who sat alone outside his trailer, still in his torn costume, nursing a whiskey. "I owe you an apology," Brennan said without preamble. Dean looked up, confused. "For what?" "I judged you," the older actor admitted, settling onto the trailer's steps beside him. "Saw the nightclub act, the jokes, the casual attitude. Thought you were just another singer playing at being an actor. I was wrong." "You weren't entirely wrong," Dean said quietly. "I'm just a singer, a lucky one who got movie deals. I don't have your training, your experience." "Training doesn't make a man," Brennan interrupted. "What you did today, that wasn't acting. That was character, the real kind. You risked your life without hesitation for a man most stars wouldn't even learn the name of." "I know Marcus's name. I know his kids' names. I know he's worried about his roof leaking." Dean's voice was soft. "How could I stand there and watch him die?" Brennan was quiet for a moment. "Most people could. Most people would freeze. The human mind isn't built for that kind of split-second heroism, but you moved anyway." Over the next 3 months of production, a remarkable transformation occurred in the dynamic on set. Dean Martin, who'd arrived as the untested solo act trying to prove himself, became the heart of the production's community. He learned every crew member's name, asked about their families, shared drinks and stories during the long desert evenings. But more than that, he became the set's conscience on safety matters. When Hawks wanted to rush through a difficult stunt to stay on schedule, it was Dean who quietly but firmly insisted on additional safety checks. When budget concerns led the production manager to suggest cutting corners on stunt equipment, Dean offered to defer part of his own salary to maintain safety standards. Word spread through Hollywood's tight-knit stunt community. Dean Martin was a star who actually cared whether the people doubling for him went home to their families. Walter Brennan, meanwhile, became Dean's most vocal champion. In interviews, he'd pivot from discussing Rio Bravo to praising his co-star's character. "You want to know what makes a great actor?" he'd say. "It's not technique, it's truth. Dean Martin has more truth in his little finger than most actors manage in their entire careers." The footage from the accident was never developed. Hawks ordered it destroyed, not wanting the near tragedy to become tabloid fodder. But the story spread anyway, told and retold in Hollywood's restaurants and studios. It became part of Dean's legend, though he never spoke of it publicly. When journalists asked about the production halt on Rio Bravo, he'd deflect with a joke and change the subject. Marcus Donovan returned to work 2 weeks later, his leg healed, bearing a gift for Dean, a hand-tooled leather belt buckle crafted by his grandfather, engraved with a simple message: "To the man who stopped the river, with gratitude, the Donovan family." Dean wore it for the rest of the production and for years afterward. When Rio Bravo premiered in March of 1959, critics praised Dean Martin's performance as a revelation, a dramatic turn that proved he was far more than a song and dance man. Walter Brennan told reporters the film's success was due to the genuine chemistry between the cast, a chemistry born from mutual respect and shared experience. At the wrap party, held at a ranch outside Tucson, Marcus Donovan and his family were guests of honor, invited personally by Dean. Little Nathaniel, Rebecca, and Thomas sat wide-eyed as the stars they'd seen on magazine covers served themselves barbecue and played horseshoes. Dean spent an hour teaching the kids card tricks, his patience endless, his laughter genuine. "Your father is the real cowboy," he told them, kneeling to their eye level. "He's braver than anyone I know. Remember that." Later, as the party wound down and families headed home, Brennan found Dean standing alone, watching the sunset paint the desert gold and crimson. "You changed this production," Brennan said. "Changed me, if I'm being honest. I've been in this business 40 years and I thought I'd seen everything, but I'd never seen someone care the way you do. Not really care, not about the people who aren't on the call sheet." Dean smiled, that familiar, easy grin that had charmed millions. "Everyone's on the call sheet, Walter. Some names are just written in invisible ink." The older actor extended his hand. "It's been an honor, Dean. A real honor." They shook, two men from different generations and different corners of show business, bound by a moment when Hollywood's illusions fell away and revealed something true. Marcus Donovan continued his stunt career for another 15 years before retiring to teach riding to young performers. He kept a framed photograph in his office, Dean Martin presenting him with a safety award at a stunt coordinator's banquet, both men grinning. Caroline Donovan would tell visitors that Dean sent a Christmas card every year until his passing, always including a check with a note for the roof fund. Walter Brennan worked with Dean 3 more times before his retirement, and he never missed an opportunity to tell anyone who'd listen about the day he witnessed real heroism, wearing Italian shoes and a prop gun belt. The lesson of that scorching Arizona afternoon wasn't lost on Hollywood. Safety protocols tightened. The stunt community found allies in unexpected places, and one crooner-turned-actor demonstrated that stardom isn't measured in box office receipts or hit records, but in the courage to act when action matters most. If this story moved you, please share it with fellow classic Hollywood fans and leave a comment telling us your favorite Dean Martin moment. These stories remind us that our heroes were real people, capable of extraordinary humanity, and that's worth celebrating. Don't forget to explore our other videos about the golden age of cinema, where legends walked among us and sometimes, just sometimes, they lived up to every bit of that legendary status.